Hey, welcome to the Insurance Buzz. This is your host, Michael Weaver and Courtney Weaver. We have a special guest on the podcast today, Mr. Beau Brooks. Beau, how are you today?
I'm doing good, guys. Oh, and I didn't mean to, I meant to mention this before, too. So if I have to hit mute for a second to cough or something, I've had this deal in that for the last couple weeks. So if I have to do that or if my throat's or my voice sounds scratchy, that's why.
No, you're good, brother. Well, thank you so much for thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. I'm excited.
Absolutely. So Beau, let's get right into this. So who was Beau Brooks before insurance?
Baseball.
Baseball.
I was baseball. So that I played my whole life, and even into college, and was drafted my junior year of college by the Angels, and was with them for 5 years. So I had no plan whatsoever other than playing baseball. I would even go as far as to say that I didn't really understand business that well, and because all that was on my mind was the big leagues and playing for 12, 15 years and retiring on that, and so that didn't happen. They told me I wasn't good anymore and released me, and it was actually my dad who had told me for years, kind of coming up, hey, when baseball's over, I think you need to look at being a State Farm agent. And I just would kind of go, okay, sure, sounds good, thanks, and then kind of go about my day. And so when it did end, when the pink slip was on my locker and at spring training, and they flew me home, I didn't, I was drafted my junior year. I didn't have a degree, so I came back to Huntsville, where we have a lot of government jobs, and you got to have a degree to get a job here. And so my dad was like, "Hey, what about that State Farm thing I was telling you about?" And it interested me enough because he was so specific with the State Farm agent. He didn't say you need to get into sales, you need to get into insurance. He said you need to be a State Farm agent. And I thought that was kind of just odd, so I thought I'd give it a shot. Let me go work for this agent, for a little bit while I figure out something else to do. And then when I found out there was more to it than selling insurance, you're like leading a team and stuff. I'm like, oh man, that's my deal right there. So it's that's when I just learned more about the business opportunity. And but yeah, it was just all baseball is all I thought about. Even in college, I don't even remember what my degree was going to be for, just because I just signed up for hey, what's the easiest one? You're asking around what's the easy classes, and that's what you sign up for. So. But that was it before insurance.
Okay. No, I love it, man. So, and I've got a couple questions, but I want to start with the first one. Why did your dad?
That's my
is he
question.
in insurance? Is he
Yeah,
from
he was
insurance,
very
or why
specific.
why is he recommending not only the insurance world but a specific insurance company to work with? Like,
yeah, so he's a account rep and has been for a long time. Account rep for Blue Cross Blue Shield. So he is in the insurance world. And my dad was a great football player too, and he's in his college's Hall of Fame, and he's in the Hall of Fame here locally, and so he's around a lot of athletes, which a lot of being in that world, he's just run across a lot of State Farm agents. I think that a lot of agents were athletes or are still pretty athletic, and so I think and he's seen the success, he's seen and he kind of understood the business model a little bit. And me not being a super, like a super savvy business person to begin with, we never really talked about business or anything along those lines. It was just all sports and mindset and leading and being a leader. Dad put that in my heart and in my mind real early on. So that's what we talked about a lot. Not so much business or State Farm or anything like that, but he knew of the opportunity, and that was a great one. And just he didn't like pushing on me, but he just said, "Hey man, that's pretty good deal. If you might want to look at giving it a shot." So.
okay.
I want to go back to that moment because a lot of times when we talk about the skills of success and how they translate from playing a sport, and I do want to touch on that, but I want to go back to the moment where you had the pink slip on your locker and they said, "No, thank you, we're done." How did that feel, and how did that really impact who you are as a person today? Because I think there's a lot to learn in the rejection or the things not working out how you thought they were going to. So what did you take away from that experience, and what did that feel like?
Well, I was oddly at peace with it. Because my thing was that now looking back, I would have done a million things differently, but in the moment, I could not think of anything else I could have done differently or tried harder at, or I did everything I knew possible and did it as extra as I possibly could do it at that time, and knew that they're the ones telling me. And you can kind of see the writing on the walls. Most of those, meetings throughout the year you have with coordinators and GMs and stuff they're very blunt about where you're at. So there's no gray area, and so you can kind of almost see it coming, and you can have time to make adjustments as long as you need to. And I tried, and I did everything I knew to do, talked to everybody I knew to talk to. And so there was an odd piece about it, I guess just simply because I don't know what else I could have done. Now I do. I think I've looked back now, and I there's a million things I think I could have, made a career out of it. But so there was a weird piece about it just simply because I didn't think there was anything else I could have done differently or tried harder at. I didn't want to have any of that regret at all, and I still don't.
Yeah, I think that's incredible to really kind of connect the dots, that looking back, everything makes sense when you look back and you're like, oh, this is why things happened the way that they did. So we've talked about the low of like, okay, I'm at peace with this. I become an insurance agent. A lot of that is going to translate. And we touched a little bit on leadership, and you're now the GM or the owner of the team. And now you're having these conversations with your team. So I want to talk a little bit about your leadership style and how you run your office and how you have those tough conversations, because you do have to cut people and you do have to send them home, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Share with us a little bit about your leadership style and kind of how you run your day to day and how you motivate your team.
So there's four key principles. So I've told y'all a little bit about my relationship with John Maxwell, and then a few others, in his circle, and even some very, very successful, of course, baseball players. It was easy for me to get around those guys. So when I remember thinking years and years ago, what like the best of the best of the best of the best, what are some things that they all have in common? And I started putting this together, and if I get invited to speak at things or stuff like that, this is usually I have an outline. It's usually the talk that I give, and because it's more of a sharing type message. It's not a, hey, I got this figured out. That's how you need to do it. This is a, hey, been blessed enough to be around some very, very successful people. They all seem to have these four things in common, and so that's what I teach my team, and it's in my vision that we go over regularly for the office. But it seems like that, and because I started this so long ago, I've gotten to tweak it some and fine tune it and maybe add or delete a few things, and this is years worth of doing that to where it's kind of narrowed down to they take ownership in every situation. And that sucks sometimes, because you have to when something goes wrong, you have to take ownership for it. You have to, take the blame for it. And then what sucks is when everything goes right, you got to give all the credit away. But they take ownership for everything. A quote I heard from, I don't know if you listen to Eric Thomas, but he's a motivational kind of guy, So yeah, he's great. I love his story. But he was giving a talk on ownership one time, and he said, if it's my fault, it's my fault. If it might have been my fault, it's my fault. If it could have been my fault, it's my fault. And if it's not my fault, it's still my fault. He said, because I'm the leader of the organization. He said, I don't want to give somebody that much control over my life and my future. And I was like, oh man, that is my, just taking ownership for everything. All the best of the best do it. They all surround themselves with great people. That'd be the second one. You've probably heard the saying, if you're the best in the room, you're in the wrong room.
Yep.
Yeah. So
surrounding yourself with people better than you, and what that does, it's like qualifying for the trips that you win, the sales trips and everything with, in my case was, State Farm. a lot. I do a teaching of my aspirants. Why do you want to qualify for these trips other than to go on the trip? And one of the many lists of those things that I teach is because you're just going to go on those trips and just accidentally learn something, and a lot of stuff. I mean, and you could go into a meeting or a lunch or something. I've done it too many times, so I know it works with no agenda whatsoever. But I just know this person or this group of people there. I know I'll be the runt in the room, and I'm just going to trip and fall and accidentally learn a bunch of stuff by surrounding myself with great people. The third one seems kind of odd, but it's that they all prioritize serving other people before them. When I was in San Diego for a week with John and his team, and one of the things he said, because he'll do some teachings at these things too, and it's a real intimate setting. It's about 60 people with John and his team for a week, and then he invites people to come in. But one of the things he did when he was doing one of his teachings, or one of the things he said about serving other people, is that if you prioritize serving, giving, well, how do you say it? Hold on a second. I got the quote right here. But he said, here it is. He said, if you give more than you receive, you'll receive more than you could ever give away. And he said it just like I say it when I'm talking about this particular topic. It doesn't make sense. Can't explain it. It just works that way. So like in my world, it would be, pouring everything I can into my team to try to, when I don't think I have time for it. There's too much other stuff going on. I don't have time to train. I don't have blah, blah, blah. Well, I mean, if I can, and I heard that a lot too, train your team. And I finally heard it enough times where I finally stopped hearing it as, God, man, everybody's saying that. It's getting on my nerves to, everybody's saying that. Maybe I needed to, and now it's one of my top, I mean, I don't have time for it either, but I make time because it's that important. And I just pour into them when I could be doing things for myself that I think I need to do. But because I pour into them, it ends up coming back and benefiting me too. I think if you go into that with that expectation of receiving something on the back end, that's where the rule doesn't really work.
Yeah.
Because I've watched it happen. I've seen it happen. But when you can push that aside and just go and think serving other people, you're going to get better. Doesn't make sense. It just works that way. And then the fourth thing is my life motto. I am so bought into this. I'm bought into this concept. And this is another phrase you've heard a million times. You've probably said it. Actually, I think I've heard you say it on this podcast before. But I'm bought into it more than I think anybody on this planet is control what you can control.
Ooh.
Because that's such a cliche phrase. That's people say it because it's great. It makes sense. But when you're bought into it, I'm confident enough to say that I am bought into it more than anybody is. When you're bought into it as much as I am, it changes your world, how you operate your business, how you operate your life, things that you should worry about because they're scary and like big. I've had this tested because I've been in major life-changing situations that should scare me, should stress me some, but I will have gotten to a point where I can't do anything about it till the next day or the next week or whatever. So there's nothing else more for me to do. Nothing else. So I'm good. I'm not even going to think about it. Drives my mom crazy because she's a worry wart, mm-hmm. And she can't believe that I can just let stuff go sometimes. And I'm like, well, I can't do anything about it yet. So I'm going to hang out with Brody and Maddie. Yeah, but what this, what that? I'm like, I don't know. That guy told me he said he'd call tomorrow, so I'm going to wait till tomorrow. I know, but what if he says this? Well, what if he doesn't? I don't know. I'll wait till tomorrow. I mean, just like, and when you apply that here, that's why we'll figure out a goal, but then we backtrack it all the way to looking at our activities, things we have control over. We can control calling someone. We can't control if they say yes or no. So how many of that you've heard that concept as well too, but I apply it to everything, and that those four things that seem to be what all these really successful people have in common. And so that's what I teach. That's kind of my style is, hey, the best leaders in the world, the John Maxwell's and the Simon Sinek's and Patrick Lencioni, all these guys, this is what they do. And So maybe we should do it. They're the best. They've been doing it for decades, so maybe it works. and so I teach it, and we talk about it every single day, every day. And so in my one-on-one meetings, that's what we talk about. We discuss how to get better. How can I help them get better, and go from there. So we're all kind of on the same page.
No, I love it. I mean, this is so good. I mean, it's accountability, taking ownership, obviously surrounding yourself. I mean, it's the birds of a feather flock together. Surround yourself with other great people. Obviously, servant leadership is what we believe in as well. And then, so control the control. All right, so control what you can control, because this is something that is easy to say, maybe a little bit harder to do. How did you go about, for anyone out there thinking this, Beau, it's great in concept. How do you actually build that muscle?
Whoa, speak to the control freaks like me.
Yeah, like speak to that. How do you go about, or how did you build that muscle? What boundaries or non-negotiables did you put in place that have helped you really focus on, hey, I can't worry about that right now. There's no sense in worrying about it. I just need to focus on what I can control right now today.
It definitely is. One of y'all just said a muscle, and it definitely is that. And I don't think people can dive in and be as bought into it as I am the next, the overnight. But you can work to get in that way. And I think it was a realization. Now I do remember when I heard it differently. I was in AA, and one of our great team guys, he wasn't a super strong, baseball player, but he was kind of the glue of the team. Like he was fun. Everybody loved being around him. The clubhouse was more fun when he got to the stadium than before he got there. And he got released, and on it was in the summer sometime, but he got released, and we played that night. We got smoked. I mean, we lost. It was awful. And there was just a weird, strange vibe in the clubhouse that day. And we all knew it was because Ryan had just gotten released, and our manager was talking to us after the game and was talking about about that situation, and told us, hey, you guys just need to control the things you have control over, having good at bats, not making the mental errors, that sort of thing. You can't control what the guys up top do, whether they release you, move you down, move you up, whatever. So if you don't have any control over that sort of thing directly, then control it indirectly with these things, having good at bat, having a game plan, studying scouting reports, all this stuff. And so he's like, because if you try to worry about controlling it directly when you can't, you're going to drive yourself crazy. You're going to go insane. And it was kind of that post-game speech that when I heard it differently, because I'd heard that phrase a million times too, even leading up to that point. And it was when I think that realization of, oh yeah, so what is the point in worrying about it if I can't? And that's even a biblical thing for anybody that's that's a faith-based person, that it's a biblical concept. There's I can't quote scripture very well, but it's about why worry? I'm not even going to try, because I can't do it real well. I don't want to mess it up. But it's a biblical concept too. If you can't control it, then now I would argue that you can almost control anything indirectly, and I could almost make that argument. But there are things that you directly cannot control, and I think it's finally realizing that when there is absolutely 0% of you having any control over changing the outcome for the better, then why worry about it? I mean, I don't know. I know that's probably not a great answer, and it's kind of short and blunt a little bit. But if you can't do anything about it, then, like, when you absolutely can't do anything about it. Now, you could a lot of times, and you don't want to be lazy about it, things like that. But when you can't do nothing, why? You're just wasting time worrying about it.
Yep.
So you could find a way to maybe adjust the outcome or affect the outcome. But at the end of the day, if you can't, then, I mean, you're just wasting time.
Yeah. And I love that you bring this up, because we've had multiple moments in our business life where it was out of our control. And it was this thing of like the sun's going to come up tomorrow consistently. Every single day, the world's going to continue to spin. Like, if I don't get all of this done, if I don't hit this goal, if I don't do this, like, there are still things that are going to continue to run. So I want you to speak to, because it sounds like you've had a lot of success. It sounds like even when it was challenging, you found a way out. In agency, it's not all sunshine, rainbows, unicorns. Like there's a lot of things that you go through. Talk to me about a time where maybe it wasn't what you thought it was going to be and how you pulled yourself out of that. Because I think especially right now with a lot of variables in our industry, it can be scary. And so I would love to hear your perspective on that and how you kind of worked through and navigated that.
Well, yeah, there's, like you said, there's a million of those, but when you were asking the question, the thing that popped in my head, and I couldn't get out of my head was I didn't realize how hard it was going to be to hire people. Mm-hmm. I thought you could go find somebody and, if they can talk to somebody and be nice to them on the phone or in person, then you can train them and teach. I didn't realize how hard that's going to be.
Oh,
so yeah. So I came up I came up with two. We in our office we call them musts. So you could ask any of my team members, probably any of my team members going back to when I opened, and they will know what these two are. And I call them must and not goals because they're going to happen. Mm-hmm. Every year they're going to happen. No exceptions, no excuses. They're going to happen. And it's I got them from talking to a lot of agents, watching a lot of agents, and finding out that if you want to simplify this agency thing down, you can do these two things and you're going to probably do pretty well. And it's to grow in auto and write life. So in my office, our two musts are to grow in auto and to travel, because travel correlates with life and all that. So that's the two basic things. You cannot look at any other report or focus on anything else, but you focus on those two things, and the other stuff's just going to happen, by accident. Yep. So there was my second year in February. My wife works in my office. She works with me, but she's not life licensed. She's just P&C licensed. And I had a full team and had three other people that all three left me, not on bad terms, but just better opportunities or other opportunities within a 3-week period. So I'm like February, towards the end of February 20th or so, and it's me and my wife, and she's pregnant, and we have a must of traveling, and I'm the only life licensed person, and I'm as the agency business owner, you got a million things to do, but I didn't have an option to. I wasn't going to put an asterisk by 2017 and go, oh man, but that was the year that everybody left us and we didn't have a team, and so I wrote 80 life policies myself, and got somebody right at the end of the year that wrote 3 or 4 or something, but because I wanted to make sure that that we travel, and I didn't have control. I didn't feel like I had control at the time of getting a team together in a timely manner enough to get them developed, get them trained, to really help me out much. So I controlled what I could, and I said, okay, well then I'm going to make sure we hit travel by myself so that that must can be satisfied while I'm trying to find a team and get them trained up and all that kind of stuff. And it's a good thing I did, because I didn't end up finding someone that I ended up hiring until it was around early November of that year. And so, but that was a tough moment, and a moment where I thought, I got to take control of this part, because relying on my team, like most agents, typically do, you train your team members and have them, have the conversations with you or with your customers. And I didn't know how much control I had over that part. So I took control over the stuff, doing it myself, and made sure that was taken care of. And so I can still say we've never missed a year of travel or growing or anything of our must so far. So that one was fun.
I love that. Whatever it takes attitude. I can get down on
and
that.
I wouldn't say it's taking control either. I think that's the first thing that you speak to, of taking ownership, sharing the vision, and then taking ownership of, like, if this is a must, then we will do. I think that's integrity too. If you say that it's important to you, you do it regardless of if you're feeling it or if the circumstances align. If that's important to you, then you show up and you do what you can.
I coach a lot on especially when it's surrounding like a promotion or a goal or something, especially in sales. I coach on the selfish side of those goals, along with why, like the real why of what we're doing for customers and things, because I feel like there's a lot of talk around the customer side of it, because I think that's the priority of all the, well, I don't say all, but most all the agents. That's their priority, is taking care of the customer and all that kind of stuff. And that sounds great, but nobody really talks about the selfish side of how of what it does to our bonuses and our pay and stuff, because you're not really supposed to. It doesn't sound good, and it's not. Then it doesn't look like you really prioritize customer. And which is totally false for almost all of us. But so that's why I teach on both of it, and teach on the why part of it as well. Because I don't just come up with goals or must for for just the selfish side. I mean, there's a why, and we get into it and talk about it all the time. And that gives a different motivation behind it too, because then it doesn't look like you're driving this workhorse of a team to make you a bunch of money. You're teaching them this other side of it. Of, man, this is why we got to help these people. They don't understand this like we do. We got to teach it. You have to teach it to them. It's your moral obligation to teach them this stuff, because they don't get it. So they're not going to know to ask you when this happens or that happens. So you have to tell them. And if they say no, they say no. But you have to teach it to them, because they don't know any better. You got the license, they don't. So when you don't tell them and they go and something happens, it ain't their fault because they didn't ask. They didn't know to ask. You did, and you just didn't do it. So you have, and teach. That gives a different kind of motivation behind it too, and versus just it being a goal or a must, for selfish reasons,
I love that, man. Show me the money, baby. Like, we in a for-profit business. That's the beautiful thing. That's the beautiful thing about sales. Like, you offer solutions for people and you get paid really well for it. That's the amazing thing about sales, because you're not actually helping anyone until you help them. Yeah.
You got to help them. They don't know it. They don't know it any better. We know this stuff. They don't know it. So you have to teach them. Let them go ahead and tell you no.
I always say, like, we are in sales to help people make great decisions. Like, as humans, sometimes we can talk ourselves out of the greatest ideas in the world if we're given enough time.
Yeah, we're not great decision makers as
no,
humans. No,
like,
we don't want to make the wrong one.
Hey, here's $1 million. Well, what do you mean? I don't know about this. Like, no, a sales professional. Yeah. That's why we have the career we do. We help people make great decisions. We solve problems that they have. So I love that you bring that up, man. Like, what? And not everyone is okay always talking about the money aspect of things. So I'd love to hear your money mindset, how you have embraced not only talking about money, but talking about money to your team and the importance of that.
Man, I got a weird view on money. I don't believe, and this comment's not even going to necessarily be, even though at the end of the day, I believe, it all belongs to God. It all, but stepping aside from that side of it, and in the context of of humans, I still don't believe that any money is our money. The money you got anywhere you got, any asset you have, any checking account, it isn't yours. You're just in control of it right now, and you are willing to give somebody else control of it so you can get their car, get their house, get their whatever. So no money is our money, and we're just in control of a certain amount of it at a time. So part of my motivation is for me to get, because I feel like I have good relationships with with my church here, and they've started up a college called Highlands College in Alabama that's doing some, and then of course John Maxwell's a part of Highlands College too. He's on there. He's a chairman or something like that with Highlands College, and then also some of his organizations I give money to as well. So, because they're doing amazing things and they're real open, and I like hearing what they're doing. I support what they're doing. So, a lot of my motivation comes from I want to get control of as much as I can, because it's not mine. I just want control of it at a time. So then I can then give them give all these other places that are doing these amazing things that I can't do by myself, because one's too small of a number to achieve greatness. So I want to get control of as much as possible to give it to these people that are doing amazing things that I would have never been able to do. So here's how I think of a follow-up call. Nobody wants to make a ninth follow-up call to somebody. It sucks. You feel like you're annoying them, So I'll make that ninth follow-up call, because what if that guy then takes the money he didn't spend here on some life insurance or something like that to go buy his girlfriend or wife some nice jewelry? Nothing wrong with that. That's nice. Get her for Christmas. Because I didn't follow up with him, so he wasn't going to call me back. I didn't do my part to try to make that sell, so he goes and takes it and buys some nice jewelry. But what if that jewelry store owner is part of this? I mean, it sounds so crazy. It's like anytime I tell it to people, it's part of this like drug sex trafficking ring down in Mexico. And he gets control of that money now because I didn't make that follow-up call. And it goes to help fund that really, really horrific thing. So, because I was too scared to make another follow-up call because I didn't want to annoy the guy and get control of his money, he goes and does that and then funds that horrible thing, whereas I could have gotten control over it and give it to some people doing wonderful things and some of them trying to stop that type of stuff. But I didn't have control of it because I didn't want to make that call. But that follow-up call would have got the sale, and I would have gotten control over it. But instead, he gave control to this guy, and he gave control over to the people doing terrible things. And that's as soon as you were asking that question, I thought, oh man, I'm gonna have to tell him how I really think about money. And because it sounds so crazy and like that scenario is so nuts, but like that's what makes me call again, and that's what makes me schedule that appointment. And because I don't want something like that to happen, I want to get it to these good people. And so yeah, I was smiling inside as you were asking, because I thought I'm gonna have to tell him this weird, crazy scenario that sounds nuts every time I say it, but is really how I view money.
Well, we chatted about this a little bit before. When good people make great money, the world changes. So that's just in line with this. And I think if that's what that's a scenario that you have to visualize to push you to the next level, to make that call, to work through the ickiness that is talking about money a lot of times, then that's your motivation. That's what you have to do. Is it a crazy story? Maybe. I don't know. How many times have you told that story to people? Is this the first time telling it on a podcast?
Oh, on a podcast? Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing it with us for the first time.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I usually come up with other scenarios. That's just one I used, I think, recently. But it's that same type of concept of getting control over it.
Yeah.
To get to good people versus not having control over it and the bad people having control over it, because it's not theirs, it's not mine, it's not anybody's in my mind. I just have control over it at the time, or you do, or whatever. So
no, I love it, and it's I love how it's like no money is our money, because it's just an exchange of value. And
they're just digits on a computer screen on your app.
That's right. Yeah. There's an abundance of money out there. It's kind of like Grant Cardone always says. He's like, "Where's my money at?" Like it's like, because it's true. Like there's literally. I mean, these printers are on fire. They're smoking, man. Like there's plenty of money out there, and so that's always my thing is. Especially as a young business owner, young entrepreneur, sometimes it's more than just the logical things. Yes, you have to know where your money's going. Yes, you can't be throwing money at the wall. Yes, you have to know your expenses. But more so, you have to make sure the money mindset is there and you have a healthy relationship with money, and understanding, like, sometimes the more you have to actually spend money, pour into your people to make money on the back end. And here's the thing, if you're hitting the trips, you're hitting the trophies, but you're not making the money, is your relationship with money, number one, healthy, and are you actually providing value, like more value to the customer than just pushing products to earn a trophy or earn a trip? Like, are you actually having the conversations that provide value that in return are going to equate to more money, more compensation, more bonuses?
Ooh, we're getting buzzed on the buzz.
We're getting buzzed on the buzz today.
Man,
I haven't got to say that yet.
I was hoping y'all say that on my episode. I would have felt down if I didn't get that one.
Yeah. I think that this is, and we're touching on a lot of really important concepts in business. And I think probably my favorite thing that you have shared, Beau, is really what you focused on, what your must were. And it's life production and auto production. Those are your two things. And I think really focusing on that simplifies our business. We tend to overcomplicate with, I don't have the right people, or I don't have enough people, or my payroll, or my marketing, or my leads. And it's like, just focus on the simple, what are your chest passes? I mean, Michael Jordan, and I love this analogy, did a gazillion chest passes. I'm just going to say that because that's what he did every single game more than anything else. So it's really like, what are your chest passes in your agency? Don't overcomplicate it. So I appreciate you sharing that, because that's really what we have to get really granular on, is like, what's important? What are your musts in agency? And then how do you lead and hold your team accountable to that? But I think,
well, no, I got to say this, because I've said it for years, and I hadn't heard anybody else say it. So I want to take credit for it and copyright this thing on a podcast. I don't even know how that works, but it's to that point of this, and I think any agent you ask would agree that, and even really any business owner. But what I try to teach or tell aspirants when I'm like recruiting them is that having a successful agency, a very successful booming agency, is so simple. It's very simple. It's just really, really hard. So it is. It's basic. It's simple. It's just there's nothing to it. It's just really hard. Because it's growing in auto, writing life. You do that, you're gonna kill it.
Yep.
Then there's the hard part. That's the simple part, and then you got how you go about doing that, and because it is, it's just getting to the foundation of it, because it is simple. Then just executing it is that hard part. But yeah, it was kind of along those same lines, so I had to get that.
I'm glad you brought up the hard part, Beau. That's exactly what we help agents with at Weaver Sales Academy, man. Like, we help them with the hard part. No, but
there you go.
But like, I love, because I'm glad you touched base on that too, Courtney, because for any agent, whatever, even business owner listening to this right now, is figure out the one or two things and keep it the main thing. Keep that where your focus is all the time. And you're right, in the insurance industry, if you're growing auto, you're also growing fire. All right. You're bringing on new customers. And if you're writing life insurance, you're growing life insurance. I mean, that is, as an insurance professional, if you absolutely want to crush it, just like Beau said, you grow auto, you write life, and you will absolutely crush it. You'll be in the top 1% of your industry every single year, and you will live the life of your dreams. I mean, you'll have the time, you'll have the freedom, you'll have the culture, you'll have raving clients.
you'll have money.
It's just those two things.
Yeah. No, you're right. And that's, and like I said, almost any agent would, they know that it's the execution part and the hard part why you hire people like you guys, and because it is, it's simple, it's easy, and I had another thought when you were talking, but anyways, yeah, it's that's all there is to it, man.
But I talk so much, I talk you out of the good idea.
Because you have good ideas, man. I can't tell you how many times I've worked out listening to you guys and have to stop and put something in my notes. So y'all, you can say I'm learning. I got notes right now. So
Beau, I'm going to ask you, because I want to be respectful of your time. But so you obviously run a wildly successful business. You continue to grow, develop yourself. That's given. What would you say is one of the biggest struggles that you see producers have that you coach to?
It's a couple things. For agents specifically, I think it's not understanding our contracts, how we get paid.
Okay.
I think that is easily number one. And then to my team, I got an awesome team. I mean, I have for years, and I would have to say that probably one of the toughest parts is getting over that reputation of that salespeople have, that bad car salesman reputation. Um, it's because I remember for the longest time, somebody would ask me, "Hey, so you sell insurance?" No. And then would say some ridiculous elevator speech that they teach at those boot camps, and it sounds so odd and weird. And now I'm like I said it yesterday in a group of people at church. There was this girl about getting ready to go to college and trying to figure out what she wants to do. I kind of jokingly but sort of serious at the same time. I said, "Man, don't worry about school. Just learn to sell." And everybody kind of laughed. I'm like, seriously, just learn to sell. Don't worry about all that mess. And because I'm almost proud of that now, and because I feel like I've learned a professional way to do it, and from a lot of people. One being, even as crazy as he is, I love getting some Grant Cardone in my system. Amongst all the wisdom of the John Maxwell's and everybody else, but I like some Uncle G every now and then. But learning those professional ways of doing it and learning that following up multiple times, 9 times, is actually professional and respectful, because it looks more transactional and and not as professional, not as caring when you just follow up once or not at all. And when I realized that, that's when I'm like, oh, okay, so that you can actually do this thing the right way and really take care of people. And yeah, it's selling, but that's how you do it the right way, because the sleazy guy where the reputation comes from, he doesn't do very well, or she doesn't do very well. The professional one does, and so that I really try to hammer that in their thoughts and their minds early on, to just because I know it's probably going to be there, that uneasy feeling of I don't want to call my friends, especially friends and family, that's weird. Well, it's not for me anymore, but trying to get them over that part of it as quickly as possible, because I think that's the biggest hurdle, is not wanting to be that person at not getting invited to the parties anymore, because man, they're going to try to say something. Don't invite her or don't invite him. When I've sold my friends and tried to sell them stuff a million times, and they still invite me because it's okay if they tell me no, and they know that, and that I'm just trying to help them. If they say no, that's on them.
Yeah.
But but when they learn that professional way to do it, it gets them kind of over that hurdle, and they see it differently. So I think that's really the number one thing for like my team, for sure.
I'm gonna get all fired up. I'm gonna have a moment here, because I think that there is this reputation in sales where we're pushy or we're sleazy, and we don't want to be those people. And the only time you are those, yes, like of course that's who we are.
You don't know how a UL works. You don't know how your car policy works. You think you do, but you don't. You just know what you hear on commercials. So of course I'm gonna be pushy. You don't get it. Let me get you to understand it first, so that you know what you're saying no to. Because the people that say no to me, but I had a chance to really explain something to them, they don't keep me up at night.
Yeah.
I lose sleep at the ones that I could tell they just weren't listening, or they said no, and I know they just really didn't get it. They don't understand what they said no to. Those are the ones that bother me. And so of course I'm going to be pushy. You don't know no better. I'm an expert, so I am going to be pushy till you understand it. Then you can tell me no all you want.
Yeah.
So of course we are.
I think you bring up, I'm so glad that you touched on this, because the difference for me is, if you're feeling pushy or sleazy, it's because you're selling based off of price, not based off of value. If you focus on value, your friends are going to continue to invite you to the party, because you're trying to help their situation. You're trying to put them in a better situation. That's what sales actually is. Integrity selling. Selling not just focused on what's in it for me, but yes, I get compensated by taking care of you. That's my job. I could have a whole.
Oh yeah, now you're about to get me fired up. Like,
I'm fired up. I was going to say, man. Remember, I told you I got all afternoon. I'll go all over 3 hours.
Just our profession. Like, it's just this negative. Like, we have got to work on our mindset, because what we are offering is a service and an education and a conversation that probably nobody's ever had with them. Like, your customers.
It's not. No. That's not it. That's not it.
Okay, what is it?
It's not that they haven't had these conversations. They've heard these things. They've heard. Oh my gosh, they've heard a lot of conversations that happen all the time in our offices have been heard or said, or like people. They've just heard it a lot.
Okay.
It's how it's been communicated to them. So and here's a little example. So somebody has $1,000 deductible on whatever. That's not the point. Has $1,000 deductible and there's $800 worth of damage. So years ago they would call in, hey, this is what's going on. Is this covered? And our answer, oh, no, it's not. This one wouldn't be covered just because it's under your deductible. You have $1,000. Oh, yeah, that's right, and it's $800. So this isn't covered just because it's not going to exceed your deductible. Oh, okay, yeah, all right, and then you hang up. It's over. It could be, let's say it's hail damage on a roof. Whatever, something that's obvious, black and white, covered by insurance. Now, when that call comes in, same scenario, $800 of damage, $1,000 deductible. Hey, is this covered? Absolutely, it is. That's covered. It's hail damage, right? Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's covered. That's black and white. That's what we do. Anything over $1,000, we'll pay for it. Oh, but no, it's only. I told you it's only 800. Oh yeah, I know. But if they get up there, find some more damage, whatever, and it gets up into 1,500, 2,000, we got you over 1,000. It's covered. So okay, but it's only 800. Yeah, I know, but it's covered. It's hail damage. That's what we do. And so we got you. Just anything over 1,000, just let us know. Who's doing the work? Maybe we can contact them and then so on. I just answered it the same way. I answered it correctly the same way. And I had a team member tell me that second way, I don't feel comfortable doing that. It sounds sleazy. It sounds misleading. It sounds like I'm like lying to him. But I realized right in that moment when he was saying that, I was like, no, you actually lied to him the other way. Because you said it wasn't covered. Because that's a lie. Because that peril, that cause of that that's covered, and so I mean they've heard all these things. Like the guy was in my office not long ago. I could tell he didn't want to be there. His wife drug him in here. I mean, arms folded like this, and he goes, man, I got to tell you something before you get started. He goes, I can't help it. He goes, and I hope you don't get mad at me, doesn't offend you. He goes, but I think insurance is the biggest scam. I'm like, man, I know it is. I was like, it's expensive too, isn't it? And he couldn't believe that was my response. But I was trying to grab his attention first. And I said, man, insurance is a game. And he had a life insurance policy with me. $150,000. He was 3 years in, and so he had 17 years left on his 20-year term, and he was paying 140 something a month. He thought that was too high, and his wife kind of made a comment, but it's because you dip, and that's why your friends don't pay as much. He goes, yeah, I know, but still, that seems so high. I was okay. Well, why don't I do this? Because he's never viewed it this way before. I said, why don't, for the next 17 years, what if I give you $145 a month? I'll write you a check for $145 per every single month. But if something happens to me, it's for $250,000. As I said, if something happens to me, even if it's next week, do you promise me you'll write my wife a check for $250,000? He goes, no, I see what you're saying. I said, will you? I'll give you $140 a month. If it's 3 years from now or next week, do you promise you'll write that check to her? No, I see what you're saying. I was like, will you? And I didn't push him past that third time. but I think people have even done that before. Like you were saying, have even said, well, now think of it if it was your money, blah, blah, blah. That's not good enough. I mean, getting down really deep into going, I'll write you a check, and you promise me you'll write one out of your account if that happens, and even if it's next week. And he increased his policy $250,000 to $500,000 because he saw his value differently. He saw it as just another bill and didn't understand really what he was getting and how he's really on the good side of that risk or whatever. Like he's on the hook for a couple $10,000 over 20 years. We're on the hook for $250,000 for potentially only getting a couple hundred. And he didn't see it that way until, but he had been told that, no telling how many times. He's been told how life insurance works. Nobody's taught him what problems they solve. Yep. So people miss that all the time too. You teaching how this stuff works, not teaching what problems we're trying to solve for them, what we're trying to protect for them. So they've heard all these conversations. They've heard them a bunch. They just hadn't heard them right. That's why they don't get it and don't understand it. And I wish I could teach people, but put on a big seminar or something. But the only people that show up to something like that would be my mom and maybe some friends. Because insurance is I mean, insurance is pretty boring, but it's so important because I think
Yeah.
people don't
Yep.
study it and research it enough because it is boring, you know.
Oh,
So
we always say it's the most noble profession in the world, man. Like you're helping people plan for their worst day to make sure that financially they're okay, so they can work on their emotional state. So it's that valued based, just educational conversation, asking those disturbing complacency type of questions, which is exactly what you're doing. So, well, Beau, man,
yeah.
this has been
This has been so
great,
much
brother.
fun.
Like if someone wanted to connect with you or follow you, like can they connect with you on social media? And obviously we'll add this stuff to the show notes, but what's the easiest way for someone to connect with you?
I would say, yeah, Facebook definitely. I do a lot on Facebook, and even going back to some of the communication stuff and wording things maybe different, maybe teaching about a topic people have heard about and have seen commercials about a million times, but flipping in a way to like maybe see it a little bit different. I do a lot of that on Facebook or try to, but I also keep up with my try to keep up with my inbox and stuff as best I can too. But would be just my name. Beau Brooks is my personal one, and then the State Farm dash Beau Brooks. I do have an Instagram, and a lot of it's copied onto the Instagram as well. But Facebook Messenger is great, and even my email, which is Beau at BeauBrooksInsurance.com. Of course, you could probably Google my State Farm office and find it that way too. But either one of those ways, I'm checking those regularly, and I want to add value to as many people as possible. I want to multiply as many people as possible as much as I can. I would love to help anybody that I can, and so reach out to me either one of those ways, and I'd be happy to.
Okay. Well, Beau, I appreciate it. Appreciate your time. This has been awesome. Lots of gold nuggets in here. So, thank you for your time. For the listeners,
Woo woo!
we appreciate you. If you enjoyed today's episode, please give us a 5-star rating. Share it with your peers. Reach out to Beau. Let him know how freaking awesome he is. And as always, you all know this, time is the most valuable and important asset that we all have. We appreciate you spending time with us today. Go out, make it great. Beau, thank you again.